In the desert oasis where stories ignite, Skip's little bar, a beacon of light. From the Coachella Valley stars to cool everyday Joes, join Patrick and Randy, let the stories flow. At Big Conversations Little Bar, the magic spreads near and far. Backed by the McCallum Theater's grace, celebrate the voices that shape this place.
From the coveted corner booth in a little bar at the center of the Coachella Valley universe, welcome to another Big Conversation with Patrick Evans and Randy Florence, presented by the McCallum Theater. Visit McCallumTheater.org or reach the box office at 760-340-2787. Gentlemen.
Howard, thank you very much. We are back here at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, in the coveted corner booth. My name is Patrick Evans, and this is another edition of Big Conversations Little Bar with my co-host, dear friend, and the former mayor of Oceanside, Randy Florence. How are you?
There's a lot of traffic in town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have I mentioned how fast everybody drives on 111?
Are you shaking your fist at them?
I'm still on that. Yeah, I can't get off of it. And the weather was very Oceanside-like when I got back, so thank you for that.
You're the Abe Simpson of the Coachella Valley.
Don't edit that out.
You got to leave that one.
Yeah.
I've called him that for 16 consecutive episodes, but it's never made it in
never
there.
made it.
Yeah, it's a busy time here. The weather's terrific. Everybody wants to be here.
Yeah.
So.
Air quality wasn't very good. You weather people.
You can always find something to complain about.
I do. Several things just driving over here today.
And, of course, our producer, John McMullen, thank you. How are you, sir? Just nod. He's fine. We want to give a shout-out to the McCallum Theater, our presenting sponsor. Don't forget that they're in the midst of a great season. They're always adding shows. You can go to McCallumTheater.org to find out more information or get your tickets. They make it real easy to do that, and they got great stuff coming up. The season's going to go on through at least early June, and they're going to continue to add shows. So just when you think maybe there's not something going to be there, there will be.
We love the McCallum.
We absolutely do. And we love our guest today. I'm really excited about having Ellen Goodman on from the Palm Springs Unified School District Foundation. I have known Ellen really since you moved to town. I met when you started your tenure there.
Yeah, it's been 12 years.
Has it been 12? That's right.
Yeah.
My gosh. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
When you got here, did you know you were going to stay?
I was hoping I would stay. I came for the job.
You had a job.
Right? So I was hoping that would work out. Yes. But that's interesting you would say that because so many people come here and they're not quite sure. And I also find that the community, the way the community receives people, it's like, are you here? Are you not here? Right?
It matters.
It does.
And there are a lot of people who obviously have a large footprint in another community, but people want to know that you're committed, and it's like, okay, it's fine if you're only here for the season, but you got to be here every season, and when you're here, you got to be committed.
Well, and it's interesting. Yeah, I don't even think they have the same experience with seasonal residents. I think it's really, are you here temporarily? Like, not even seasonal, like, oh, I just came to Palm Springs, I just moved here from wherever, and it's like, like, how committed are you? Like,
have you joined a board yet? Are you involved with a nonprofit yet? Yes.
Have you picked your favorite 3 charities?
That's right.
Will we see you at these galas?
Right. What gym do you go to? Where do you shop? Where are you living? But yeah, I think people really look for that staying power. Yeah. I think seasonal, they accept that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, again,
they sneered at me when I first got here.
No. Why?
No.
I
I'm
don't
teasing.
think that's true.
I
don't think that's true.
No.
Although, you come in, and was the community what you expected?
Well, great question. Once I landed, it's exactly what I thought. On steroids. That I did not know. The community was exactly as I imagined it from the times that I had visited here. But when I say on steroids, I didn't realize the level of entertainment, the amount of entertainment, the amount of curiosity, the level of interest and concern. It's much greater than I imagined when I first got here. I knew that it was here, but not quite like it is. Like, I didn't know that I would be exhausted from October to May.
Yeah, it is a marathon.
I had no idea.
First of all, we're going to delve back, But I want to talk about the Palm Springs Unified School District Foundation, the job that brought you here.
Yes.
Because it plays an incredibly important role in supporting students and educators, but kind of tell people what you guys do for just the kind of introductory. If people don't know what the foundation is,
Okay.
give them that 411.
Okay, really quickly. We raise money to fund projects and programs that taxpayer dollars don't cover. And I just have to say, it's all the fun stuff at school, right? So
It's all the good stuff.
right? The government's going to fund everything the kids are tested on, and then all of the great stuff that kids want to show up and do in school, the things that build community, that makes a class, that makes a family, that makes a campus, those types of things. The after school, the enrichment. I mean, we go as far as we actually purchase tennis shoes for our homeless kids. So all of these things that taxpayer dollars, our property tax, government dollars don't cover.
I love the shoe program. I am disheartened to know how many kids need it.
Oh, yeah.
But that when I heard about that program where you provide kids with shoes, new shoes to start the school year, I mean, and that's tough. I mean, I had teenagers. They would outgrow shoes while you watched them.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy.
Well, and throughout the year. So, right, we might start the school year. So 10% of the school population is considered homeless. And that's broken down into unhoused, in temporary, like a hotel, motel, temporary, or they're doubled up, tripled up with family members. But throughout the school year, families have tragedies, families have needs throughout the year. So where we run the campaign, we're actually going to start it soon. We run it through spring till the end of June. We purchase the shoes in July, and the kids get shoes in August. And then we actually just keep raising all year round. So if somebody sends $100, and it's unrestricted, right? They don't say, oh, I want it to go here or I want it to go there. We put it right to the shoes or right to the classroom. We don't hold money. And so all year round, we can actually provide our kids with tennis shoes.
Well,
There's such a need for so many of the kids in this area for so many things like that. I mean, you go to things like backpack giveaways and such where they've never had anything like that. And it's the most important gift that anybody's ever given them.
Well, and it's interesting because how this all came about, somebody dropped off a huge box of Christmas toys. Beautiful, huge box, and said, please hand this off to kids and families. So we took it over to our student service department and said, here's a box of toys. And they said, gosh, I wish somebody would give us tennis shoes. I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, that's the number one request that families have, tennis shoes. And we're like, okay, we're going to do something about that. So, and in that sense, the majority of the projects that we raise money for, that we fund, are school-based projects. So we do after-school robotic clubs, after-school drone clubs, esports. We do wellness centers. We're going to launch a literacy where we're going to be raising money and doing book drives for our elementary schools so they can have little book nooks. Those kinds of things are really school-based. So the tennis shoe is the one thing we do that's not school-based.
But it's something that, if a kid doesn't have a pair of shoes.
Yep. That's crazy.
It's like, I put it right there with food. And if a kid isn't eating, they're not going to learn.
Right.
And if they're not, properly dressed and prepared for school, they're not going to learn. It's going to be a tough environment.
And it's a tough environment. You just nailed it. I mean, a lot of kids, a lot of families, they go to where they can afford to go. So it might be a garage sale or it could be a discount place. But it's really how the young person feels when they're wearing it. And that changes how they show up emotionally, spiritually,
it's a
intellectually.
self-esteem, confidence issue. I mean, kids can be really tough.
Oh,
if you're not wearing the
show
newest,
up wearing
nicest,
the wrong thing.
Well, you guys know, right? You raise children.
Oh, Randy's very much like that. He picks on my
like
shoes
that.
all the time. He's kind of a bully. But
one of the programs that you guys did a couple of years ago was around the musical instruments.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Because that one fascinated me.
Well, I'm very happy to say we were able to, it's called sunsetting, right?
Yeah.
So we launched this project. So our elementary schools, so our school district is what they call an art equity district. It's one of the only school districts in Riverside County. And that means it has taken a pledge and has made a commitment that every single student will experience the arts. So our school district hires music teachers for our elementary schools. but they don't have any instruments. So I go in, I do a site visit into one of the classrooms, and if they have instruments, it's because that teacher was hustling to get a few instruments. But when I walk into most of the classrooms, this was a while ago, I would notice that they were teaching with cutouts or like printouts from the internet or Xerox copies from books. So if they were learning like the piano, they didn't have a keyboard or a piano, they had a picture of it.
Oh, man.
So that the teacher was teaching theory, they were understanding music, but there was nothing to play.
They weren't hearing it.
And so we launched a campaign that was a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. 3rd grade recorders, as silly as that sounds, but it really starts to get the vowels and the hand coordination. And then 4th graders got ukuleles, which just introduces them to the strings, and 5th graders got keyboards. So it took us a couple of years. It took us about 3 years. We focused 1 year on 3rd grade, the next year on 4th grade, and then on 5th grade. And now all our classrooms, now it's just a matter of a replacement here and there or a repair here and there.
Right.
But they all now have instruments in all their classrooms.
That's amazing.
All their music classrooms.
You know, as you point out, what is funded are the things that kids are tested on.
Right.
But those are not the things that make school a lot of fun.
Right.
I mean, like, there has to be a little cherry on top of all of that's important, obviously. But you want to give kids that experience outside of just the academics because it enhances their academic performance.
Yeah, it makes you want to be in school.
Yeah. Although when I was playing the clarinet, that didn't help me go back to school. I did not enjoy that instrument at all.
No?
I like the recorder. The recorder
really?
was really cool. Yeah.
We're not talking about the tape recorder. We're talking
No.
about...
The little, I thought playing the clarinet would be exactly like that, and it wasn't.
And so was it your choice to play clarinet, or was it family choice?
No, I wanted to play saxophone, and the place that was giving out the instruments didn't have any more saxophones.
Oh,
so I took the clarinet.
So you got a clarinet. Okay, so when we launched this campaign, I thought, okay, I'm going to take piano lessons. Have you guys taken piano lessons as an adult?
No.
Oh, it's so hard.
And
Oh my God, it's so hard.
I found it
I don't have
impossible
that
as a kid.
manual dexterity of
Oh,
doing
wow.
different things with different body parts.
Okay, I can do that,
It's
but
just
when
talking about the piano.
Let's get back to the piano.
I was going to say I can do that.
Good heavens.
But trying to keep it with that, what is that thing called? When
the metronome?
Yeah.
Metronome, yeah.
I can't. No, I'm a free spirit. I'm a free will. Like, you know what I mean?
Playing
Like,
jazz, then you can just ignore the tempo.
yeah, I could improv.
That's right.
It was hard. I thought, oh my God, thank God they're learning in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. As an adult, it's painful.
hard to-
For me, it was.
And have you learned? Do you play
No. No, are you kidding? I joined a pickleball group. I thought that's so much easier.
piano? At least I could hurt somebody.
Obviously, there's so many organizations that do a lot of fundraising. That's your primary
Yes,
focus.
it is. Yeah.
This community is one of the most giving and charitable communities I've ever lived in. But there are a lot of challenges because there are a lot of competition. There's a lot of competition
Yeah.
vying for those charitable dollars.
Yes.
How do you guys cut through all of that to reach your target audience?
Oh, it's a super great question. And I'll just share with you, one of the more difficult things for us to raise money for is technology.
Really?
We have a very giving community, and it seems to get generated around the arts, right? Everybody loves the arts, and so there's a lot of support for arts. I think we're going to do very well when we do our book campaign, our literacy kind of movement, because that is just a core academic. But when we get into advanced technologies, a lot of people in town have a really hard time understanding, like, what does that look like? How is that going to benefit? Like, we're not thinking...
Does that impact the drone program?
Right, there you go. It's right there. Of course it does.
Yeah.
So the number one job, so it's very interesting if we think about it, and I'll answer your question in a second, but right now, cybersecurity and drone, these are like, you can graduate high school without a college degree and go right into these jobs and make more than a teacher starter salary.
Yeah, they're
And you could be like
lucrative.
19 or 20 years old and just go right. Yeah, very. And there's a lot of verticals. There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, there's incredible growth.
So we're leading the nation in drone education. We are the only school district in the country that wrote their own curriculum on drone education and entered it into 8th grade. So we have 8th graders learning. Kids are learning in elementary school and so forth. We're preparing them so that when they get out of school, they can get work immediately. But, our community is a very arts-driven, very humanitarian-driven, animal-driven.
People give money to things that they know. And so I think a lot of our donor
And feels
base...
good.
And and I think a lot of our donor base throughout the entire Coachella Valley.
Yeah.
Probably is not as techno-based.
Right.
And it feels alien to them, so...
You know what's interesting? There is a huge tech community here, but it's like underground. It's like, it's not obvious to us. So I've been working with the city of Palm Springs around a new tech initiative, and we launched 2 events just as social events to bring the tech community together. There were about 8 organizers. Mostly everyone was tech. I came from the education lens, and there were all these tech individuals, and we had at the Palm Springs Art Museum and then at the Palm Springs Air Museum, and it was shocking. All these tech folks just emerged, and they're living, Mid-Valley, East Valley, West Valley. And then we just recently had a drone fest, and people came out of the woodwork.
Wow.
So it's just trying to find them. That goes back to how do you kind of weed your way through the philanthropy in town and get, zero in. I will tell you, we are not an event organization, so we're not constantly producing events looking for people. We're really, we're really looking for those one-on-one, two-on-one, like really finding individuals that have the interest. And so, not to give all my secrets away, but you have to listen. You have to be in a conversation, you have to be everywhere, and you have to be listening for where the interest is. And every now and then, somebody shares something, and you can hold on to that and say, okay. And then you position where that person is, you make a match. And what's great about the school district is there are so many different buckets to be able to match people with. Versus, if you're in a medical center and the person is not, connected to a medical institution, or, they're healthy, their family's healthy, there's nothing in their world that would connect them, then that's not their person. So you have to, we have a lot of different avenues. And if we can tap the inner child, if we can tap your inner 9-year-old or your inner 14-year-old or 18-year-old, then we might be able to find a match for you. And that's what's great about the work at the foundation is we have so many different areas of education that we can actually drive people to. And then it's cultivation of individuals. It's building trust. And we try to work with legacies and long-lasting gifts, if possible, and really match those individuals.
Hey, it is, I think a distinction. So many of our organizations out here that do fundraising do it on like a grand event scale. They'll do a golf tournament or a gala. Right. And you put on a fun event.
Yeah, one night out.
One night out. But what I love about it is it's probably the least expensive gala ticket in town.
Right on.
So you make it very accessible to everybody.
Yes. And that is an acquisition strategy, but it's not. And who knows if that acquisition strategy is going to turn into a trust or an estate gift. We don't know. But it is a way to celebrate our community. And yes, we definitely get individuals' names and we get emails, but because we're not event-driven, we're not hounding people with emails all the time.
Right.
Right? And then
I need an acquisition strategy. That sounds like something.
Or an
you're
exit
busy.
strategy.
What are you going to acquire? Mike, you don't have any time in your day.
So you being not event-driven, did that make it easier for you guys to continue what you were doing during the pandemic?
So the pandemic was really difficult, right?
How did it impact you?
We sent out a few emails asking for $1 million. We didn't hold back just because people weren't out and about. We made those requests. I think what we were able to do, and we had the support, that's the other thing is, we're the school district. We're not going anywhere. Right. And Palm Springs Unified is a fiscally responsible and well-managed institution, and we score quite high in Riverside County for being the school district with the highest poverty. So that's kind of interesting. So the school district, we pivoted, and we spent our entire time during COVID raising money to help families with their essential needs. So we didn't have school-based projects. We weren't doing instruments.
Right, because schools were closed.
Right. Schools were closed.
It's very hard to make a case that you did the right thing because you pivoted to what people needed the most at that time.
And interesting enough, when you have like 3 or 4 kids, and even if you have multiple families in your home, but if there's 4 children in your home or 3 children, even 2, and say they share a room or there's 2 rooms for 4, or where are they going to study and do their work? So all of our kids have Chromebooks, but really when I say the essentials, sometimes we had to get desks, sometimes we got lamps, right? We had to get the materials so that it was more than just back to school in a backpack, but kind of like that where everybody got a packet so that they could do their work at home. And then it was for the family. Then we supported families.
Did they all have broadband?
We made sure, the school district made sure that every single household had access to internet, and so they had hotspots.
Yeah.
Right, for the ones that didn't have internet, we
they weren't
provided
parked outside of McDonald's using their Wi-Fi or something.
Well, if you think about Down Valley, you know, where it's much more rural, or if you even think Sky Valley between Thousand Palms and Desert Hot Springs, it makes sense to have a school bus parked where families can access that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'll also say we served 8 million meals.
Wow.
Over COVID. We just filled the bus up with food, went to neighborhoods, delivered food so families didn't have to go far. So we were able to pivot.
You had to feel pretty good about the things you were doing during that time when people weren't eating, when people didn't have school supplies and such.
It was hard, though. I mean, you can imagine. I mean, it was hard.
Were there specific lessons that you learned through that in the event that anything ever happens again?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I personally or the foundation, but I do think that we as a country probably would do it differently. Yeah. Right? Like there were markets where schools stayed open. And there were markets where schools were shut down and people just, I don't know if they felt really great in hindsight that the schools were shut down as long as they were.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think people kind of acknowledge that shutdowns lasted too long, and we've seen that lasting impact on student performance, that sort of thing.
And not even just like the kind of the performance, but on their mental health.
Yeah.
And so what we did during COVID is we started to have conversations. So we're trying to raise as much money as we can to help. And I guess about 22,000 kids. So how many of our families would look like? And so in addition to that, we started to prepare ourselves for when kids did come back to school. And then what we launched was our Wellness Center campaign. And actually the success of that campaign was more than we imagined. And that was helping the kids when they came back.
It was a really important need. And, I had teenagers at
that time.
And, our oldest was right in the middle of her high school experience. And I think about so much of the things that she missed out on from basically freshman to junior year. Yeah. And for a while, I thought this is great. They've shut it down. She's just getting to dating age.
So lucky you. Keep her safe.
That's right. But now, then in hindsight, though, then we're getting ready to send her off to college and realize, she's had zero experience with boys.
Right.
And so we're really sending her.
And she's not living at home, so you can't.
So, that's right.
You can't manage it.
I can't take the tire iron to the kid and remind him.
Right.
But you keep one nearby.
Always.
Just so they know there's one.
Yes.
Or send a photo.
My wife asked, why is it under the front seat and not in the trunk? And I said, well, there are obvious reasons.
Right. But you can also imagine, so fifth grade, right? So our elementary schools are kindergarten or pre-K to fifth. So imagine being a fourth grader and being shut down. Your next introduction is sixth grade, which is your introduction to middle school.
Oh.
So
and that's a hard transition anyway. Just going fifth, oh my gosh.
I mean, can you remember junior high? It was junior high when we were going to school, right?
Junior high, yeah.
Oh, painful.
It was, Randy, they had those, it was after your time, junior high.
Well, all of our classes, whatever age, you were in single room.
In a single building.
You're not dating yourself,
from kindergarten to seniors in high school.
I'm sorry, was the floor dirt? No.
If you ever saw an episode of The Waltons, it was the schoolhouse that Randy went to. It was...
Although I didn't stay long. Well, let's get back to, you mentioned earlier that you visited the area.
Yes.
When did you start coming here?
Okay.
And for what reasons?
So I'm embarrassed to tell you that the only time in my life prior to moving to California that I ever, and please, anybody out there listen, please do not hold this against me and don't advertise it. But the only time I ever even heard of Palm Springs, because I grew up like Woody Allen. I went to Atlantic City. Palm Springs was what Lucy and Ricky did. They drove cross country to go to Palm Springs, and that was my introduction to Palm Springs. It wasn't even on my radar. So I moved to California. I'm living in San Francisco. And as we look around in the beautiful valley that we live in, it's like we have a ton of people who are seasonal residents and they own homes here. And so I was fortunate to be invited to come down and stay in group homes. A friend of ours owned a home, and it was like, hey, let's go down for Memorial Day, or hey, let's go down this weekend. Or I'm like, sure, maybe I'll run into William Holden. Who knows? Like, let's go down. And so I started coming down with friends, and that was fun. And then I took advantage, just like most people, and I started renting places. So I had friends that owned. I had owned in Florida because that's where
You're in the East Coast.
East Coast people go. I had a place in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Now I'm in California, and I'm like, okay, I'll rent a place. I'll bring my family out. We'll have a good time. And one time my sister, so it was July 2013, and my sister came out to stay with us here.
On purpose in July?
Yes, do you believe it? And you know what? If you actually know, if you know your schedule and you know your lifestyle, I think you can survive summers here. Right?
Oh, yeah.
We have.
Right? So
100%.
my sister was like, what, 115? Oh, it doesn't feel like 115, right? Because, you're in the pool, you're in the house, you're at the movies, you're, it's you go into the grocery store, you have a towel to open the car door, you don't even realize it. And
we have coping mechanisms like people do who grew up in Buffalo when you can't go outside in the winter because there's 4 feet or 8 feet of snow. You all have coping mechanisms for those months that are less desirable.
And I'd rather be hot than freezing cold.
You never have to shovel sunshine.
No.
Well, you don't, right?
We
and
do
you get
shovel a lot of stuff.
And you can have a margarita instead of like a glass of red wine or
That's
something.
right. That's right.
Something refreshing.
We don't do
tonic
hot
and vodka or something.
It's something nice and refreshing.
So after about 3 or 4 days, my sister was like, why is this not on your radar to live? And I'm like, well, when you look around, your first blush at the town is of retirees. And I'm like, well, I still work. And 2 days later, she sent me the link to the school district job. And she said, would this interest you? So what you should know that I don't think I've ever shared is I spent my corporate world, my corporate experience in franchising. And so one of the things I love to do...
For quite a while you were in that,
I was in franchising for a while, yes. And one of the things that I love to do is I love to layer the business model of franchising onto nonprofits. So what that really means is I love startups. I just love it. I love starting things.
Does it energize you?
It's very energizing. I love bringing the community in, and it's kind of, if you think about franchising, and with franchising, you don't just own one store. You want franchisees to own 10 stores.
Right.
Or
the economy of scale, and then everybody does better.
And so you're always in this startup mode because you're always bringing on a new business. And so the school district was looking for someone who had experience. It was their first employee that they were going to hire for their foundation. And in my mind, that was a startup.
Yeah.
And it was taking it from no employees. They had $9,000 in the bank. Right? They weren't doing really a whole lot, giving some money to teachers and to the classrooms. And my sister said, would this interest you? And I was like, hey, what the heck? Why not? And really, it was all online. I never met one person. Just said, okay, sure. Boom, pushed enter. There it went. And I got an email back.
Wow.
And the rest is history, I guess.
And now you're sitting here at Little Bar.
That's right.
12 years later.
So your career is over now.
Right, a little bar. Yeah.
Well,
This is pretty much where it ends.
It doesn't bode well.
It's a cute little bar, though, I've got to say.
We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge and thank the McCallum Theater. Then we're going to dig into your background a little bit. We've gotten to the point where you push that button on that link and got the interview to come to Palm Springs. Why don't we find out a little bit more about your years in the corporate world?
Thank you.
All right, Ellen Goodman is our guest, and we are going to be right back. But now a word from the McCallum Theater.
The McCallum Theater's 2025 season is on sale now. The world's top artists from jazz, pop, classical, and comedy to the best of Broadway, only at the Valley's favorite place for great entertainment. Tickets are on sale now at the McCallum Theater's box office, by phone, or online at McCallumTheater.org. Tickets sell quickly, so order yours today. It's an exciting season only at the McCallum. Your entertainment, your theater, the McCallum Theater.
And we are back, and again, our thanks to the McCallum Theater. Such great supporters of Big Conversations Little Bar, and you should be a supporter of the McCallum Theater. We're here with Ellen. We're talking about the importance of arts and those kinds of activities for the kids, and one of the great beacons of art in the Valley is the McCallum Theater and their education program.
They're fantastic.
You guys work with them, I know.
We do, very closely.
So, well, we were just talking about how you were dabbling in visiting Palm Springs, and your sister was really the one
Yes.
who said, "Hey, you should check this out."
Yeah.
So that led to the job here. But talk a little bit about. So you grew up on the East Coast, and you were in the corporate world.
I was.
Tell us a little bit about that story.
I love it. So, well, let's see a little bit about the story. How
Are
can
you
I?
from Baltimore?
I'm from Baltimore. I was born and raised in Baltimore.
That's our second guest in a
Make
row.
sure you talk to Slim Man about that.
Slim and I've talked.
No, have you about Baltimore?
Yes,
There you
yes. And I don't know. When I grew up in Baltimore, it was the greatest place. I thought it was. I don't know. I grew up in an era. It was the genre. To be honest with you, it was the genre of John Waters. That was the time I grew up. So Baltimore just was the place to be.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I'll just share with you, and totally offline, I'll share with you that I told my mother when I was 16 years old I wanted to be a hairdresser. And my mother was like, "Oh no. No, you don't do that. You go to college, you study, you go into a career." And I mean, she just did not, even though she went to a salon and she got her hair done, her nails done, right? But no,
She understood the importance of that.
right, but it was like, and she didn't do the research to see how much, Revlon made or like what the industry was at the time. But I don't know, I just thought that I just wanted to have fun. And I saw movies, shampoo, and other things, and here it is, John Waters, and they're making movies, and I'm like, oh, this is the lifestyle for me. And so I wanted to go to beauty school. And my family kind of insisted that I go to college. And so I went to college. And I have to be honest, for anybody, I tell kids this all the time, college really wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I went to 2 years of college, and I went back to my family and said, I really want to go to beauty school. And so I got to go to beauty school. And then I must tell you, I came out of beauty school, and I immediately went into corporate work. And so I started working at Saks Fifth Avenue in Washington, D.C. Wow. I was sent to New York to train. I was in the cosmetic and beauty department. I was licensed. I've actually never cut hair a day in my life. And I just saw it from a business model. I just wanted to be in that world. And so I got picked up. So I was with Saks Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor, Neiman Marcus. I was just managing these accounts out of New York, living in Washington, D.C., Chevy Chase. And I loved it. And I got picked up by a franchise company. And the franchise company was like a Merle Norman.
Yeah.
And this was a time period. It was cosmetics. Yeah. And it was a time when you could start to get your hair done and your nails done in malls. You could buy puppies in malls.
Right.
I mean, all of a sudden,
malls were huge.
It was all the mall business. And the franchisee, or the franchisor, the company was Dr. Pet Centers and iNatural Cosmetics. So it wasn't a Merle Norman, but it was like that. I think that's the most familiar for people to understand. So I got into this, believe it or not, into this world of retailing and this world of malls through the beauty industry, and I joined a franchise company, and I was their national training director. Wow. And I just flew. I just took off.
You were...
Oh, I was doing shows in Vegas, like beauty shows, and I was opening franchises all up and down the East Coast, the West Coast. I was traveling all over the place. I was working with individuals who had bought their first franchise, and then they were going to buy their second and third and fourth. So I did all their business development. I did their business development. I did their product and staff training. I escorted and held their hand through their first year of ownership, and then I'd move on to another franchisee. Wow. And I owned one in Washington, D.C. in Georgetown Park.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So it was.
So, I mean, you had the experience, the hands-on experience of starting that business from scratch. So yes. you were the perfect person to help train other franchisees.
Yes. And, when I think about, like, what I love to do, and I'm not an academic, but I love teaching. And I love helping people. I love being of service. And for me, it was a way to help people own their own business, make a lot of money. And funny enough, at some point, okay, so let's see now. So now we're in this, right? I own a franchise, and now people are coming to me, and they want donations for their silent auctions. I have to tell you, I'm like all of 29 years old. And they want all these donations. Okay, yeah, sure, we'll give you a beauty day, a spa day, as this. Well, and I thought to myself, how do I even know that my brand is going to be promoted? How do I know if the person is going to come back and redeem? What happens if all these questions around the auctions started coming up for me as a business model. And I thought, I have to learn more about this. And so I started to get involved with these auctions, with silent auctions. And this was in Washington, D.C. in like 90, 91, 92. And I fell in love with the business, actually.
There's a huge philanthropic community there, too. There's so many organizations that raise money and do those kinds of things.
Yeah, and, I didn't see it from that and necessarily. They're national, right? That was what was so exciting about D.C. and my living there, is that local news was world news. The businesses that were there were national or world businesses. It was fascinating. It was a fascinating place to live all through the 80s and the 90s. So I picked up this real love for social service and community service. And I remember I was volunteering, right? So now I've traveled. I'm making a lot of money. I'm hanging out with a lot of rich people.
You dropped out of college. Obviously, things just didn't go well after that.
Well, I went to trade school. It's very interesting. I went to trade school, and I think that we hear that in the community. Not everybody has to go to college. There is trade school. I will say, though, during COVID, I went back to college.
Did you?
Yes, I went to Stanford. And so I spent 2 years. So I kind of completed that full circle.
And was that why you did it? You felt like you had something you needed
my whole life I wanted to do that. Yes, I always wanted to go back.
What did you finish with the degree? What did you get?
It's just business.
Yeah.
And so I'm.
She says it's just business.
Just business.
I'm sitting here thinking
business.
I still have 3 years and 10 months of college to graduate.
But you know what?
You better get started.
It's interesting. It was at Stanford. It was a leadership. It was through their graduate school of business, and it was a leadership. So it was more innovation and more tech and more future.
It seems that's where your head was at.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, that seems like a perfect fit.
It was a good fit. It really gave me a lot. I'd go back.
You like the Bay Area?
No. But I mean, I'd go back to Stanford.
Well, you lived in San Francisco for
15 years.
15 years, yeah.
Yeah,
so
it didn't throw me out.
What?
They didn't throw me out. I couldn't wait to get out, but they didn't throw me out. I thought if they threw me out earlier, I could be here sooner.
It was San Francisco, I think, and I know it's gotten a bad rap of recent, but it's a fascinating city. I don't know that I could live there, but I love visiting there.
Oh, it's a great place to visit.
Yeah.
But trust me, I don't think you want to live anywhere outside of the Coachella Valley
I do not.
Where the sidewalks roll up at 9 o'clock. Right, so you come from the East Coast, and I'm a tunnel and bridge girl. I was in New York all the time. And, sidewalks don't roll up.
Right.
They roll up at San Francisco. You can't find anything to do at 9 o'clock at night.
You have to go down to the Tenderloin. I can tell you some places.
Okay. No. We'll save that for another show. We're going to save that for another show.
Yeah, the first time I went to San Francisco, I had a friend who grew up in like the Bay Area, and we went back. We were in our 20s, and he said, well, we're going to go down to this part of town called the Tenderloin. I thought, any city that has a district called the Tenderloin has got to be a really interesting place.
There's got to be great restaurants.
It wasn't that.
It was an interesting place. And most of us land in the Tenderloin when we first get there, which is funny.
So you didn't fall in love with San Francisco, but you have fallen in love with it here.
Oh, I love it here. Oh, I love it. And interesting, this reminds me, I tell people, they're kind of surprised, this reminds me a lot of D.C. So when I did switch and I moved from franchising and corporate into nonprofit, and it was interesting because I would volunteer for a nonprofit, but I'd be looking at it through a business lens, and I was like, oh, God, this could be run very differently. Because, back in the 80s and 90s, nonprofits weren't run the same way they are now, right? You couldn't get a degree in nonprofit. It was Mad Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. It was an advocate. You were an advocate.
Right.
You picked up a cause. And so, I was looking at like all of that, and I thought, geez, wow, this is a beautiful place, Washington, D.C. You are either a part of the administration and you're moving in their direction, or you fight the administration, right? I mean, it's just a beautiful role for it. Didn't matter who was in office.
There's a place for both.
There was a place.
Yeah.
And I find that, when I got here, everybody here wants to have a better life. They want the best life they can have, whatever that looks like. In San Francisco, I found it to be very compartmentalized. It really depended on what neighborhood you lived in. But the city wasn't unified. It wasn't moving in the same direction. And even though in the Valley we all come from different places and have different ideas, we all want something very similar. We want a good life. We want a place, if we're going to raise kids, to be able to raise our kids. And we want a place where we can write our last chapter. And D.C., it just felt very, very similar. It also has building codes. So it's kind of low density.
And nothing can be taller than the Washington Monument. So.
Well, that's right. And low density. I mean, San Francisco is really high density.
Really high density, yeah.
Right?
No, D.C. is a great town. I spent a lot. I grew up in Virginia.
Okay.
And my dad worked for the EPA for a little while, and so we spent a lot of time in D.C. It's just a fun town.
It's interesting. It's informative, and people care, and they talk about things that really matter. And I find that to be the case here. And where in San Francisco, it was really hard to find that level of depth, that level of caring. And I found that, if you're going to live in a city where the city council has to pass a law that the mayor has to attend their meetings, something's wrong.
It's a problem.
I worked there for 5 years, and I used to tell people it loses its charm when you're there every day.
You know what? I agree. Stay a visitor.
Yes.
Yeah, stay a visitor.
Absolutely.
Yes, it lost its charm. I knew the minute I touched down on the tarmac.
You were like, this is not going to be charming?
No, this is not going to last long. I was surprised it's 15 years, and it was very good to me. I won't say it was very, very good to me, and I've got some lifelong friends that I made while I was there.
Oh, no, it's a great. I think again, it's such a fun city to go, and there's so many fun things to do. But
great Italian food.
There is some very good
Really
Italian
good
food.
Italian food.
Absolutely.
So
there's good
after your
Vietnamese
franchise,
food. Good Vietnamese food.
Oh yeah.
after your franchise life, where'd you go?
Well, so it's very interesting. So after the franchise life, I stayed in Washington, D.C. and went into nonprofit. And I spent most of my time doing HIV/AIDS work. I think that really was the movement then. And things changed from the late 80s to the early 90s around HIV. And in the early 90s, HIV's demographics started to look very different. And your gay white men were really no longer at the table. And who was showing up at the table as far as needing services and advocating for themselves were people of color, sex workers, injection drug users, incarcerated. And I'm sitting at the table one day, funny enough, as a volunteer, and I'm looking around and I thought, oh my God, if I leave, who will speak for them? You know, I just kept thinking about that. Like, if I leave, like, you know, these are individuals who aren't used to lobbying Capitol Hill. You know, they're not used to looking for funds. They're not used to, you know, empowering themselves to speak and lobby and move legislation. And so I thought to myself, you know, I really should stay at the table. And so I made a shift and I started working. My first work was that I actually was in a department was the National Minority AIDS Council. And then from there, and that, interesting enough, it was a nationwide organization that did technical assistance. So again, my franchising background that was national all over the U.S., my first job in HIV and AIDS was for an organization that had a footprint throughout the United States. And so it was a very natural fit for me. And so I went into nonprofit. I spent a lot of time doing this work. It was pretty hard during Reagan and Bush periods, this kind of work, and you're fighting constantly every day. And then, in all honesty, at some point, I had to leave the country. And not because I did anything wrong, but my God, it'll wear you out.
Yeah. Well, it's tireless work.
Oh.
And, it's exhausting.
Exhausting. I was like, how far away? I mean, California wasn't far enough, so I moved to Israel.
Yeah. That's a little further away.
That's very far away.
What did you do when you moved to Israel? Where did you live?
I lived in Tel Aviv. Yes.
But you were doing kind of the same type of work.
I was. I went through a New Israel Fund, and that is it's a work program, and I actually ended up doing HIV/AIDS work in Israel.
Wow.
Very interesting. 15 years behind the U.S.
Yeah.
So it was it was interesting, just starting all over again. With those very, very early intervention. It was really early intervention. Handing out cards, handing out kits, you know, and educating people.
Well, yeah, I mean, the United States, there was a stigma and we wouldn't talk about it for a long time. What was that like in Israel?
Oh, that's really, wow, what was that? Let me think back. It was a long time ago, Patrick. Let me think. It's very hard because it's religious based.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And nobody wants to talk about it. It was really, really hard.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think that makes the job that much more difficult, and it was hard here.
Yeah, if I think back, I'm going to tell you that it was exactly the same. You know, I'm just trying to transport myself back to that. Nobody wanted to talk about it here either. And it might not have been for religion. Some of it was religion, but other things it was covert. things that were going on were covert. Like, so there were truck stops and bushes and bathrooms and, department stores. And same thing was happening in Israel. It was bushes, it was the beaches, it was in a bathroom somewhere. And it didn't matter if it was religion. Like, nobody shut you down. People you just handed them an 800 number and said, if you think you've been exposed, call.
And so how long were you in Israel?
97 and 98.
Yeah.
And it was time to come home. It was time to come home. And when I came back from Israel, I came to California. And that's how I got to California.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you went to San Francisco,
yes.
What kind of work brought you there?
So actually work did not take me to San Francisco. An apartment did.
Oh.
So somebody said, I come back from being out of the country, and somebody said, hey, I have a place. It's vacant. It's in San Francisco. You can hang out there for a while. And I thought, sweet. Okay, I'll go there. And so went to San Francisco, and when I started to look for work, I said to myself, okay, Ellen, two things. You're either going to work with kids or you're going to work with seniors. And the reason I said that was one day I'm going to be a senior, and so I need to make sure there's care for me.
Yeah.
Or kids are going to make decisions for me when I'm a senior, and kids want out.
One of the things that's come up through this conversation, no matter what you did, whether it was helping franchises or your future work, was the importance of advocacy with you, being an advocate for people. Where did that come from? Was that a big part of your growing up? Was a family involved in stuff like that?
Well, I think that, I have to say in hindsight, because growing up I wasn't aware. It's like my family was just my family, right? So I didn't think, oh, God, there's my mom, and she's volunteering, or she's out doing that, or she's doing this, or anything. But, no, I think we're raised with values that you care about family, you care about your neighborhood, you do unto others as you want others to do unto you. I think my family was a pretty good role model, but I didn't see them out there feeding people or doing clothes drives. I didn't really see that. It's just... And it's interesting. I think it's organic, but it's everyone in my family. My sister's exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Now, how did you meet Bianca?
Oh, Bianca owned the coffee shop in San Francisco across from the place that I lived. Yes. And so it was really interesting. So I was, and nobody would be surprised, actually. But so I came back from Israel. And this is my mother. She's such a pistol. So I come back from Israel, and I said to we landed JFK, and I said to my mother, so look, I'm at JFK. And she says, oh, okay. And I said, and she came to visit me when I lived in Israel. And we hung out with this gal who I was spending some time with in Israel. So we get to JFK, and I said, okay, just want you to know that gal that you met when you came to Israel, she's with me. And my mother said, Ellen, people bring home souvenirs, not girlfriends. So I said, okay. So the souvenir and I go to San Francisco. The souvenir, the girlfriend,
yes,
actually spends every single day at Bianca's Cafe. I never go to it because that was her place. And I was like, let her have her experience. Never went to it. Girlfriend and I separate. And now I start going to the cafe. And that's how I met Bianca. And Bianca and her husband own the cafe. And that became my neighborhood, my community safe place, and the place where I was. And 5 years, Bianca, after 5 years of going to the cafe, Bianca said, and she's married at the time with no intent. She just said, I've got the biggest crush on you.
Married to a man.
Yeah, 4 kids.
Wow.
And I said, okay, maybe I should stop going to the cafe. This doesn't look good.
They're like, damn it, I really like the coffee and the food.
Right. It was a hard one. And she was really good because that was all. She just wanted to share that. And then over time, I was attracted to the attraction.
Yeah.
And so I was curious. I wanted to know more and to understand more. And she and her husband were living together but living separately. And so that became more and more obvious. And the husband encouraged her to kind of take a dive off the cliff.
Wow.
And I said, don't do that. It's not going to go well for you, Peter. Don't do that. But she did. She took a chance, and 22 years later.
22.
That's phenomenal.
That's
yes.
awesome.
And great. It's been so much fun. I have to say it's been a good run.
Was it difficult to convince her to come to Palm Springs?
No.
No.
I first wanted to go to Miami. Remember, Palm Springs was not on the
It was
radar.
not on your radar.
So when we came here, and she said, I just wanted you to know I was never going to Miami. And so I was like, okay, good to know. But she's not a spoiler. She's just such a great lady. Not a spoiler. She's just like, you live your life, you run your path. And the path led here, and she loves it.
And she's carved out her own path here as well.
Well, until COVID, but yes, she was doing all the private cooking and catering, right? Because she had the cafes, and she's a fabulous cook, so she was a private chef. And she loved being of service and doing food for all of our events and all of our stuff, and that was really fun. And then COVID, and something happened during COVID. She realized, ooh, I don't have to do this anymore. Like, I don't have to, because, it's hard work. It's hard work cooking and preparing and serving.
I do a couple of those charity dinners. I do a few of them a year. And not on a regular basis. Maybe a couple a quarter.
It's hard.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And I mean, after COVID, she was just like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. And I'm like, okay. Sure, and that's also, there's a little bit of an age difference, so it's kind of strange. It's like, one thing you do is you never go home and say, how was your day? When someone's retired. You don't want to say that. Not when you're a worker bee. You don't want to say, how was your day?
I read an interview with you, and the question was asked, what was your greatest accomplishment?
Wow, you really did your homework.
Oh, Randy is the research department.
Wow. What did it say?
And your answer to the question was, I survived.
Yeah.
And I wondered whether that was just kind of you threw out the answer, or whether there was really something behind that. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, that's a great thing. So let me think back. There is something to be said for Gloria Gaynor, right?
Yeah.
I think working in D.C., fighting, just lobbying and working with individuals who have no voice, trying to help people get established with a voice. The franchising, that was easy. People have money, they buy a business. It was very different than working with people who really their voice was taken away from them, or they never developed their voice, and really training them to have a voice. It was very gritty, very hard work, a lot of street work. And so during that whole period of HIV and AIDS, you basically worked the streets. You worked methadone clinics and prisons, and it was really rough. And so when I say survive, it's like I actually came through that a better person. I came through that with more compassion, more education, more awareness, more humanity, more understanding, and kind of surviving that. And then I do think transitioning from East Coast to West Coast,
that's a big deal.
Takes some survival skills.
Yeah.
It does.
Right?
It absolutely does. It's an entirely different world.
Like, they tag me immediately. Oh, you're from New York. Oh, you're from the East Coast. Just my energy level. So it's like, trying to really work and do something good in an area where there's already listening. They have expectations of who you might be. So what else? I wouldn't say that my greatest accomplishment was kind of surviving. I think now, so many years later, I might say being in a 22-year relationship is a big accomplishment.
So your answer might be a little different today.
Yeah. But I do think we, and actually the surviving, I would also say would partner with thriving. Is that through survival you get to thrive? Yeah. And so, yeah.
Well, you're certainly doing that, and you're helping others do it, which I think is the most important thing. You hit the ground running when you got here.
I was lucky.
And you've made the community a better place.
And I have a lot of respect for the community. There is no agenda.
Well, you couldn't do what you were doing if you didn't feel that way.
Yeah. And I love it. It's I feel very fortunate that who I am in the world gets to be integrated, into a community. And if it didn't work, I wouldn't be here.
Well, it works pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Patrick.
And this is clearly the place for people from Baltimore.
That's right. Yeah, just ask Slim.
And, Slim's doing an event. He's doing an instrument event, and this is for middle schools. So we did the whole elementary school campaign, and we're all set. But middle school, so see, now kids get interested in music in elementary. They get their first experience in band in middle school. And our middle schools don't have the funds to provide band equipment. So he's doing an event on May 4th at Vicky's in Indian Wells, and it will be for middle school instruments.
All right. So go see Slim and support.
And Ellen.
And support middle school instruments. Ellen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
I sent her an
fun.
invitation. She said, well, what are we talking about? I said,
We never know till the guest sits down.
All because of fabulous guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much.
This is awesome. Thank you, Ellen.
On behalf of John McMullen, our producer, our guest, Ellen Goodman, thank you so much. Randy Florence, my dear friend and great co-host.
Ex-mayor.
And the best sidekick from Oceanside that anybody could ever have.
It's a big list.
It's a very long list, and you're at the very top of it.
Thank you.
I'm Patrick Evans. This has been Big Conversations, Little Bar. Please subscribe. And remember, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Big Conversations, Little Bar. Recorded on location at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, and presented by the McCallum Theater. Online at McCallumTheater.org. This program is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. All episodes are available from BigConversationsLittleBar.com and most major podcast portals.
Meet your neighbors, fascinating and grand. Each conversation, a wave on the sand. Raise your glass and join the ride, where stories and dreams fully collide. At Big Conversations, Little Bar, brought to you by McCallum, our guiding stars. From movie, stage, and TV's delight, join us for a captivating morning, noon, or night. So gather round at Skip's Little Bar, where stories travel from near and far. Big conversations where they unfold, with Patrick and Randy, tales retold.